So, a bit ago, Jaiden Animations, famous YouTube Arrow Ace icon, played in her first ever D&D game, and only recently, she released an incredible animation covering the experience. It was a lot of fun. I mean, seriously, I was laughing the whole way through. And when I was watching it, I'm going to be honest, I was thinking, hey, how can I talk about this? Because this is a big YouTuber talking about D&D and her first time playing it. And I was like, there has to be a video topic in there. And turns out there were a few. While I was watching this, I saw plenty of great lessons that you could take away to make your games all the better, specifically for brand new players to the hobby. Very rarely do we see brand new players getting onboarded in this way. There is a lot of serious D&D games, and I love that. You know, I love the High Rollers BG3 games. I love everything Critical Role does. I enjoy those. But it's also good to see this super casual angle. Even a comedic show like Dimension 20 has a lot of seriousness in the production and in the players. But here, we see an extremely casual experience that realistically is going to be the way a lot of people play their first ever D&D game. And from it, I think that there are, like I said, some really cool lessons. So, without further ado, guys, here's my reactions and thoughts on the Jaiden Animations game. Let's get started. So, opening up with our party, we're in a giant tree, and we've got a quest hook. A sheep enters with a scroll of Speak with Animals that, for some inexplicable reason, blows up everything, and the party go on their quest together. Now, there is not too much of a hook here, and usually, I would say that this is a bad thing. It is best practice, at least we say it's best practice, to put a hook in for your players. A hook for them to connect to their backstories or their characters' personalities. For example, if someone is looking for their lost mother, perhaps a mysterious entity drops off a scroll with her mother's signature etched onto the bottom, thus incentivizing that player character to join up with the rest of the party. This is best practice, but not following best practice does not necessarily mean you're going to follow bad practice either. Here, we see a much more casual quest hook. Something inexplicably amazing happens, and the party decide to see where it goes. There's a talking sheep telling them what to do. Why not follow it? Now, this is what is called suspension of disbelief. Now, yes, realistically, massive scare quotes on realistically, the party don't have much reason to go on this journey. In fact, Jaiden herself points that out in the animation. But at the same time, the players, the real-life people who are playing these characters, they understand that if we don't go on this quest hook, we are not going to be playing much of a game. We need to go on the quest to experience the quest, and therefore, they're okay with just going along with the flow. Now, as a dungeon master, you shouldn't rely on this too much. However, in a more casual game, especially in a one-shot, it's perfectly okay to rely on the social contract. It sounds a lot more formal than it is. It's basically the agreement between DMs and players that we're here to, you know, play the game. Now, like I said earlier, this sort of thing should not always be relied upon. It is best practice to hook in the players. But again, with new players and one-shots, that is less incentivized, especially if you have players who understand what they are getting into. This is a way more casual game. You don't always need to painstakingly connect all of the pieces of the web. Sometimes it's okay to just trust your players to go on the adventure, and a lot of players are going to be okay with just throwing their lot in with the quest hook and enjoying the adventure that you have planned for them. And hey, even though this initial quest hook didn't hook everyone into the plot, it's not like the DM didn't use those backstory elements, as the big bad evil guy ended up being very connected to both Paul and Tholomew, two of the players. So yeah, perfect. Even if you don't want to hook those things in initially, you can do it as the game or the campaign progresses. It all ends up working out in the end. Alright, before we get to the end, though, we've got some puzzles to deal with. The party came across a bronze door that ended up asking them some riddles. Fun little brain teasers. And, oh boy, guys, puzzles are the bane of so many DMs out there. I would say so many players out there, because they're the ones failing the puzzles sometimes, but for the DM, when the players are failing at a puzzle that you thought was simple, trust me, it's way worse, because we feel like we have just no idea what to do in that situation. Do we handhold you? Do we just give you the answer? Do we let you just roll an intelligence check to get the answer? How do we do this? Do we have an NPC solve it? That was my go-to for a long time. Look, I think that the DM here handled this the best way they could have, and that is with some very clever hints. Now, Throughout this, the DM just needed the party to solve a couple riddles, nothing crazy. However, it's the final riddle, double or nothing. And now Jaiden's at the plate, and she probably doesn't know the answer. Maybe she did know the answer the whole time, and she was just like doing a bit, but I mean, I don't know. I can't read her mind. The point is, her character was not producing the answer plainly, and the DM needed to give some kind of hint. Jaiden volunteers that maybe the magic door could use the answer to the question in a sentence, and the door cleverly says, "You're not going to worm your way out of this one." A very neat little hint that gives the answer to the puzzle. Now, some shenanigans later, the party eventually realized, hey, worm's the answer, and then therefore passed through the door. But here, this simple little moment is a good example of how DMs can hide hints in plain sight. Often, DMs will recommend that, oh, they can roll an intelligence check and get the answer. But why not roll an intelligence check to get a hint? Or perhaps find a hint if they look hard enough around the area if you're using some kind of physical map. I love these sort of elements as it makes the party feel clever. The point of a puzzle is not to be an obstacle. The point of a puzzle, at least to me, is to make your party feel smart. Just like how the point of a combat is to make your party feel accomplished by beating it. With a puzzle, you want your party to feel like they're doing something. A simple hint, put in plain sight, either buried in some wordplay in a sentence, or perhaps sequestered away in some hidden part of the room, could make your party feel all the better, while helping them at the same time to solve the puzzle right in front of their face. Ahead a little bit, the next puzzle, the party needed to craft some little clay sculptures, and those sculptures came to life and attacked them. A penguin, a worm, and a crown. And this is a really cool example of Dungeon Master Improv. Now obviously, I don't actually know if the DM was improving here. I can't read their mind. However, I'm like 99% sure they were, because the players all decided what they were going to make with the clay in that moment. The DM could not have predicted it. And through a little bit of clever stat block manipulation, they created some really unique monsters. Now, of course, this all could have been pre-planned or some big brain move I couldn't have thought of. The DM wants each of these clay monsters to feel unique. So, instead of having to flip through the book and find unique stat blocks for each and every one depending on what the party made, the DM instead gives each one a unique ability. Flee Immortals does this as well, obviously not in an improv sense, but just in general, gives monsters individual unique abilities to make them stand out, and I love that. However, being able to do it on the fly, it's actually a little bit easier than you would think. Take the Crown, for example. The Crown in this game turned Tholomew against his fellow party members. One of the party members attacking the others, a fun little time. But that is actually an ability in D&D. Crown of Madness does something similarly. I guarantee, I don't actually know, but I'm pretty sure the DM saw that Tholomew was crafting a crown, and then thought, oh, the unique ability of this crown could be the famous D&D spell, Crown of Madness, used against him as a player character. It's a great idea. The worm that Jaiden crafted is another great example. She made a worm that ended up grappling and attacking her. That's a unique ability given to that little creature that made it stand out from the other two sculptures. Just small individual changes can make you seem like the smartest person in the room. They're small. They're not major additions to the stat sheet, but they really do stand out. And because the players were the one that initiated this, remember, they were the ones that created these creatures. That clay monster is only a worm because Jaiden willed it. That other clay monster is only a crown because Tholomew's player willed it. That is really, really cool. And creating abilities off of that, like I said, makes you look really awesome as well. A big mistake I see with so many dungeon masters trying to improv stuff at their game is they go so big picture with it, and they kind of dig their own grave with making whole cities or making whole characters, or even worse, creating whole stat blocks out of nothing. That kind of stuff is difficult. But improv isn't just the big things, it's also the little things. And especially improving based on player input is a really good habit to start learning. For example, one of my bosses, his major mechanic was this heart that he had. He summons in this demon heart that he was going to use to empower his minions. However, the party ended up destroying it, so I quickly pivoted. His minions are no longer empowered, but they're still there. So his abilities, instead of focusing on empowering the minions, they focused on directing the minions instead. Instead of turning into these mindless, more mighty beasts, they are less mighty, but they still have their intelligence. They can take orders. All I really did was reframe my boss's abilities to be about directing monsters rather than giving them extra damage types, shifting that ever so slightly to respond to a player's miracle rolls. It's not always going to be easy to do this, and if you don't think you're able to, that's okay. Even small changes require a little bit of thinking, and when you are DMing, it takes a lot out of this. You know, it's not easy. But if you can make those small little additions, focus on those big picture miracle improv ideas where you come up with a whole city on the fly. Those things are fun, but the reality is the small changes, they're going to be the more common and hell, even more noticeable things for your players to enjoy. Alright, this last point is kind of appropriate because I just watched the Boogie 2988 documentary, so you bet that I'm feeling the depression right now, but the point is that depression does refer to something else other than the depressing documentary. It refers to the way that Jaiden chose to take out the big bad evil guy of this one shot. Mark, the manager. The evil manager from Walmart ended up being the bad guy of this game, and while he was not the most intimidating foe on the block, he was certainly enough to give the party a run for their money, but not Jaiden. Jaiden decided to do something that no one could have seen coming. Her character, Zoot, cast command and commanded this boss to feel depression. Just single word command, depression. The boss starts pouring out his heart about his ex-wife and about his horrible life and how he desperately wants to get things back together. So Jaiden and her character shapeshift into his ex-wife, walk up to him, and then acid blast him in the face, almost taking him down in one shot. Absolutely brilliant. But it would have been less brilliant if the DM did not go along with it. The depression moment was threefold, in fact. One, it was Jaiden and her character coming up with an incredible idea and executing it very well. Two, it was the DM allowing themselves to just go along with the flow. And three, it was the other players who chose not to interrupt and to trust where this moment was going. I mean, I don't know how much of that was intended, but all of those things are required in order to make this happen. Most importantly, on the DM's end. So many times as a dungeon master, I want to jump in. I want to take the lead. I want to do things as a dungeon master to direct the game. Often your job is to direct the game in certain places, control the flow of the river. However, there are times, in fact, many times, where you're going to want to not be in control. You're going to want to follow. D&D is a collaborative experience. And while obviously the DM is God, the DM is playing literally everyone else in the world, the DM is the one who creates the initial plot hooks and who directs the adventurers towards their goals oftentimes. Like I said, players leading can also be very, very valuable. Here, the DM sat back and let Jaiden cook, so to speak. Let her figure out what she wanted to do at this moment, and it ended up being one of the funniest things I've literally ever seen, and one of the most epic combat moves pulled by a high charisma character. As a dungeon master, I have a tendency to just never shut up sometimes. I have a tendency to just feel like I know what's best, but that's not true. My players have cool ideas. They have amazing ideas, and when I let them carry those ideas out to the fullest, it makes my game so much better. It's one of the most important things I've learned over the years I played D&D. I'm a better dungeon master today because I let my players take the lead when they want it. Sometimes they want to give me the lead. They want to let me have an NPC tell them where to go. They like that too. But seeing when they want to take control, that is a great DMing skill. Seeing when they want to cook themselves and letting them have their moment, that is valuable. And here we see it in its perfect form. I don't know if I said the last point was the final point, but this is the actual final point for real this time. Look, this game that was published on Jaiden's channel, obviously very chaotic. the big bad evil guy is a Walmart manager killed partially by literal depression. It's a lot, and it's not going to be a game for everybody. But like I said in the intro, I'm really glad that this game exists because it showcases something we talk about all the time, but I need to reiterate because a lot of people don't get it for some reason. Everyone plays differently, and every way of playing is valuable as long as you're having a good time. Look, not every DM would want to play this sort of game. Not every DM is going to want to make their BBEG a Walmart manager. Not every DM is going to be into the whole tone and aesthetic of a crazy, chaotic, somewhat modern, I guess, world for the players to play in. But it doesn't mean that that kind of game isn't valuable. A game where just whatever goes, where people are just laying back and having casual time. Serious games where you're playing out an epic fantasy, those are also enjoyable. All types of play are valid as long as the people there are having a good time. The most important lesson from all this is that Jaiden enjoyed this experience. Her DM enjoyed this experience. The whole party enjoyed this experience because they were all working together to create this epic adventure for themselves. They were focusing on what everyone there wanted to play, and that's what matters. For me, my party love a Mass Effect-esque story where they get to interact with tons of awesome NPCs, bond with them, and take them on adventures, try their damnedest to keep them alive through the epic turmoil of their game, while also occasionally getting made fun of by their dungeon master. That's the kind of game my players like. Is that the kind of game for everyone? Hell no. But it's what we enjoy, and that is all that matters. Whether it's a chaotic festival of insanity or a more adventure-driven story, who knows? Whatever style you want, as long as you guys are having fun, that is all that matters. Alright, I didn't exactly end this video off with an atypical message, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the Jaiden Animations video. In case you couldn't tell, it ended up being hilarious. The link to both her video as well as the original one-shot where you could just watch the whole thing, they're in the description if I remember. I hopefully will. But in any case, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our RPG Horror Story series, where we cover the best of worst Dungeons & Dragons. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy Tavern. You get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories and thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment depression, which is going to be really awkward if you don't have the context at the end of the video. But in any case, you can leave that down there if you can't think of a comment. But anyway, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.